Picked the wrong week and quit sniffing glue.
Enterprise, this is the Galileo. Come in, please. Come in. Enterprise, this is the Galileo. Come in, please.
Well, good morning. Welcome back. It is week two of the shuttlecraft Galileo. And, last week I mentioned, finding hope in the weirdest of places. And I had a wonderful incident over the weekend that I wanted to share with you because a viewer of mine, and I will name his name, I will sing his name proudly from the streets, Barry. Barry saw last week's video, saw that I was working on the interior, saw that I was struggling with it a bit, and offered to help out of nowhere. Now, it's true that I had, a little bit of dealings with Barry before, getting a part to him, that kind of stuff. But Barry took it upon himself, said, "Hey, I see you want to print, you want to work on the interior of this shuttle, and I can help you. What can I do?" And I said, "Well, Barry, here's the thing. I've got a file for the seat that I picked up off of Thingiverse. And but it prints very, very thin. It prints wafer thin. It barely, I can print the supports and just a little bit of the chair. It's just so thin, even at the finest setting, the walls were so thin that they wouldn't print. Can you help me? What can you take this and fatten it? Can you give it a good 3-course meal and just fatten this file up so that the walls are fatter?" And he said, "Well, sure, I'll take a look at that." And we went back and forth throughout the whole weekend. And what we ended up with was this thing of beauty right here. A, my printer was cooperating. That was good. B, Barry and I got our files back and forth. And we went through like 3 rounds of this. Now, sizing it up and down, I can do. But as far as making the walls fatter, that's beyond my knowledge. So Barry took the file. We went through one pass of it. They came out. They printed. Still very thin, you could see through them, but I was getting like 75-80% success where one wall would just be blown out for, just too thin one way or another. And I tried orienting it in different angles on the print bed and all that kind of stuff. And I came up with the optimum, which is you put the base of the seat as close to the plate and then, make it 45 degree off of that. So that was the best way of printing it. But once we had something that would print, I started playing with the scale up and down to make it fit. And I came up with a size that I think will work. And then I said, "Well, Barry, here's the size I have. If you can make the walls maybe twice as thick as you've got right now, we'll be done." And amazingly, and Barry is across the ocean. He is not like, next door. So this was back and forth over the weekend, but we've got a file that doesn't take all that long to print. And now I have taken this file and I have put it out for free on the Cult 3D 3D printing site. So go find it. If you do a Google search, it will pop up. But that's where we started, so let's get going. In other news this weekend, I also was playing around with a couple things. Now, there was a note on my video from last week saying that maybe I had the console too far back, and I took that to heart, and I looked at it again. And there's a lot of TARDIS work going on in here, that the inside is bigger than the outside type of thing, so there are concessions to be made. But looking at it, I thought, well, yeah, maybe it is. So you can see the line on the line in the sand that must be drawn here. The line was where it originally was, and you can see now that it is maybe a 1/4 of an inch farther forward. And in a shuttle this size, with all the stuff that has to go in it, a 1/4 of an inch, it does matter. But you can see where I sanded off the front of this to grind it back so that it could fit farther forward. And here, like I said, now you can see maybe that was the original line, and now the new line is about here. So it's about a 1/4 of an inch closer to the front. And every millimeter counts, as they used to say. Every silly millimeter counts. So that sits a little bit farther forward. And then the the chair, that gives room for the 7 chairs that need to go in here. And I've also decided to slide the back wall a little farther back as well. I know that we're playing fast and loose with the real estate in here, but what the hey, it's my model and I'll cry if I want to. I also was working on something that will either work or it was, you know, a weekend spent in vain. But so I could pull out my trusty store of magnets here. We're just going to play with this and see how far down the road it takes us. If it works, I'm going to have to trim this down a little bit more, because I was playing with an idea of making the side pocket door. Now this is the other shuttle kit that I have, but let me see if I can get this to where what I was doing this weekend. Don't know how much of this you can see from here, but imagine this is the inside of the shuttle, and all of a sudden we've got a magnet from the outside that we are manually closing, the opening and closing the side door. Now if this works and I can test it all out here and then move it to the actual kit, then that will be a thing. But I'm trying to keep the wall obviously as thin as possible. It will result in the doors being recessed, much like you would see a door on a corridor. It would not be something like that. It would not be it would not be in the same flat plane as the rest. It would look like a pocket door, and that's something I'm willing to live with. It could be a fun thing. It could be a nice treat, but it would you would end up with a door that looks like that, rather than out and, you know, closed and then on the same plane as the rest. So we're going to see if that's worth all the time I've been taking to make it work. But the first thing I want to do today is, hopping back on the trail of these chairs, is I need to make the base. There's basically a frame that comes up and then has the 2 big knobs on either side. Using Randy Cooper's design idea, it's this thing I need to build, but I need to make it obviously smaller. And you're asking me, why didn't I print this? Well, because I thought I was giving Barry enough of a heartburn to make what he had made, and this is certainly something I can scratch build. It's okay. I've got one of the chairs released from its supports, and you can see how lovely it is. Very nice chair. Now I've purposely put all of the supports on the back, because the back is not the money side. It is the side that you will, if you are putting all of your chairs facing forward, you wouldn't see the backs of them anyway. If you need to, you could certainly angle them so the chairs are against the walls. Well, it helps if it's in camera. You can angle so your chairs were against the walls. The only backs you'll see, and the ones that you really want to clean up, are the ones maybe for your 2 pilot and navigator chairs that you will see. So those are the ones you want to have especially clean. And then these are the little knobs that go on either side of the chair. These are painted silver. And they will go, again, like I said, just on the outsides. So let's get those cleaned up off of their supports. There. Oops. Oh, it didn't. I didn't hear it hit the ground, so it didn't. And they're black, so they're tough to keep a hold of. Now, the first ones I printed were in clear, because clear resin was all I had. The translucent resin was all I had left in the house. And boy, those were a nightmare. You couldn't see. You couldn't tell whether you needed more translucent resin in the printer, because what you saw was clear, and then you couldn't really see how well it was printing. So that clear is it's a devil in its own way. Okay, I got the chair cleaned up. I just need to pull out some strip styrene, and I think what I want to do, let's see, determine how wide this is, because it seems to want to be wider in the center, something like that. Take a width of it, and then it narrows on both sides, and that's where the bolt goes, or the knob goes, and then it hits the ground, and it's flat on the ground, and then it comes back up to another trapezoid shape here. So it's going to look something like that when you're done, and then you fold it up or cut it in pieces and glue it up. Randy has his as a nice curve. I might try that. I don't know. I don't know whether that's all that necessary. I could see if I can not. The bend might. As thick as the sheet styrene is that I want to use, it's not going to bend very well. So unless I heat it, which then it introduces a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'll probably just build it in 3 angles and then sand it from there. I think I've got something workable for the chair frame. And this is why someone would say, why don't you just print this? Well, because I don't know the printing creation tools that well to go into a program and actually make something. And B, I can scratch build that much better and much more quickly and much more uniformly. The things that I have discovered about printing is particularly flat, stable objects. It's not the best format for that, because it will want to cup it or curl it, or getting it consistent along such a small shape like this. If you've got sheet stock, styrene stock, you're better off just doing it this way. And there you have a finished chair. 1 coat of black paint, and it will be done. And now I can sit it on the ground inside my shuttle and gauge all of my other chairs and walls and everything else around that. Good morning, welcome back. It is Tuesday, and I apologize for not getting as much done yesterday as I had hoped, but sometimes Mondays get away from me. I answer emails, and if I have to run an errand or two, that usually gets done on a Monday, and that eats into my precious model making days. But luckily I did get a bit of a jump this weekend getting started, so all in all I don't feel I'm that far behind. I'm doing a little bit of cleanup here, hope you don't mind while I ramble. But today I am full bore into the frames for the seats, and I've got one done as an example. Here you can see the fine example of one being done, and now I'm just replicating that down the line, getting a little bit of an assembly line going here. I was able to refine some measurements off of that so that these other ones will go quicker, one would hope, but it ends up making a frame like that. And I just need to put the knobs on the sides of them. Now the thing is about the knobs, for some reason the knobs on the file, this is how one of the prints looks when it comes off. Oh, and I hope you might have noticed on Thingiverse and Cult 3D I uploaded this file. It's free for you to download. If you have a printer, you can start printing it right away. I obtained the file for free, so I didn't feel I had any right to sell it. So what I've decided to do is just upload it, and you can, depending on the size of your printer, you can just fill up your plate with these if you wanted to. But it's available. I'll see if I can remember how to put the link in the description for the video this week. But that being said, the knobs on here, one of them comes out wonderfully, one of them has a little bit of a defect in it, and the thing is, it doesn't matter, because if you know where your chair is going, you don't need to see both knobs anyway. You only really need to see the outside edge, or the outside knob. If you are looking in, you only need to see the ones that are on the, I guess it would be the left hand side of this row, and then maybe the right hand side of this row. So plan your knobbage accordingly. Whew. getting some. This is the thing about doing scratch building, is it gets messy in a quick hurry. So you have to stop and clean your tabletop off fairly frequently, or else you'll get deluged. Particularly if your parts are small, they can get lost very easily. So I have to stop every so often and just sweep up. Okay, I need to start throwing some paint down on these interior pieces so that I can get a true sense of what they look like. It's always best if you're scratch building to scratch build onto raw styrene, because that's when you're going to get your best adhesion. But after you reach a certain point, you need to gray it up so that you can see what it is you're working with. So that's what I need to do now, is put the gray on this, and then I can start thinking about putting the black on the chairs. Now I've got the floor and the back wall kind of laid out. Before I attach them down, I want to paint them obviously first. It's going to be a lot easier to spray these out in the world than it would be once they're in the kit. But before I do that, there's a whole lot of work I need to do on the interior, as far as getting the interior walls, at least the passenger side wall, this side wall. I'm sorry, I'm using American car parlance. That's the passenger and that's the driver's side. I don't know why I said that. It doesn't seem to make any sense that way. But the right hand side is going to be the easiest one to put the wall in, because there's no door on that side, so there's nothing to worry about. Okay, back from priming and letting it dry for a bit, and then comparing it again to what's on the screen, and I can tell already that I am not going to be happy with this, because all of my face frames are too fat. So I need to thin them all, sand them all back, thin them all down. This central stock needs to be a bit wider, but then again, trying to fit it into the model with the chairs that I've got. The chair gives me a good amount of space underneath the console, so I'm happy with that. And by the time you have the walls angling in on them, and you put the chair in, you are left with precious little room. So if I made that even wider in the center, it would take up even more of the space. So I think I'm going to make myself happy with that. But maybe thinning the face frames will give me the illusion of this being fatter. The work has been steadily progressing. I am working on the console, trying to trim down the face framing on this, and considering how elaborate my lighting is going to be. And then I've taken the frames, which have dried, and I need to go ahead and glue the seats onto the frames, and then I can space them out appropriately. I've been cutting templates for the shapes of my inner walls, so that I can everything in this, basically everything in this interior is gray. So I'm just going to use the primer gray color, and maybe a darker color of gray on the carpeting in the center, but the primer gray walls is what's going to have to do. Okay, so I've got all the chairs in their bases, in their cradles, and I tried very consciously not to put them all in their locked upright position, because I think it adds a little bit of life and spontaneity to it if it, if some of them are tilted back or some of them are not quite straight up. Makes it look like the last person that was in it didn't readjust it after he got out or she got out. And it just gives it a little bit more uniqueness to it. The ones that got painted looks very nice, so I just need to zotz these now with a quick coat of black primer. But I want to stick them down. I'm not going to stick them down, but I'm going to position them down so you can see how much space they do take up. And I'm going to angle them towards the inside Ooh, I need to put that console in first to make room for it. Because also I think it's a little bit more interest if they are not completely locked down and you know, facing front. And here you can see the chairs taking up the rightful amount of space. This is my template for the wall. This is not a postal carrier van. But then that leaves me this back room area here for my lighting. You know, in a perfect world, you'd open that door and you'd have the equipment lockers going on back there, but that's not really necessary for this build. And let's see if I take this, see if I can grab it by the tweezers. You can see what's going on there. That'll give you an idea of how the front console is going to work. So we're getting ready to wind down for the day and clean up this mess. Got some stuff out on the back porch that is been primed and it's drying in the afternoon sun. And so I've got a darker coat on the floor. You can see I got some on my hands. You can see how the chairs will work against that. I think that's going to give me all the good contrast that I want. The bottom of the walls and the very top of the walls, the upper cove of the walls, they are a coral color. They are, I won't say institutional, but they're kind of, they're a weird color. And I'm going to paint the bottom half of the walls that color because it'll give some much needed spark and some contrast to all of this gray upon gray upon gray that we've got going here. So I'm going to have to, I think I'm going to have to mix something up for that because I don't think that's a stock color that I've got readily at hand. But there you go, without the back wall in, it's kind of easier to see what's going on. Hello, welcome back. It is Wednesday, and I am suffering mission creep. And you know what mission creep is. It is that feeling that while you're at it, you might as well do one more thing and one more thing. And I've got to stop myself because I'll never get this thing done if I keep going at it. And I have to remind myself that I will be doing plenty of these. I don't need to throw everything in the same build. So right now I am looking seriously at the lighting. And first thing, starting from the front to the back, first things you got to light are the headlights. Now, I know these are a subject of controversy because they weren't there on the original kit. I know they were planned. I know they were intended. I know it makes all the sense in the world to do it. So I'm going to do it. But if you were a purist, you would want the louvered covers. You would want the, well, let's get the camera up so you can see it. There you go. You would want the louvered covers there and not these lights. And I'm kind of surprised that the round 2 folks didn't give you those options. But it is, as they say, what it is. And I think it's a nice idea. I mean, I honestly see a good idea for it. Which also further cements my idea that this side is the driver's side and that side is the passenger side, because the headlights are shining out over the driver's side. So I'm thinking about my lighting and my real estate, because you don't have a lot up in here, especially if you were putting a console in. You are hard pressed for space behind those bulbs. So it looks like strip lighting is the way to go. And it looks like a good old couple of, well, let me see if I put it on, take this kit as a out in the world example. I need about that much strip lighting, which is on this segment on the double densities, it is 2 segments. I'm gonna see if I can get away with just doing it with 1 segment, because that's an awful lot of bulbage to put in there. And the thing is, it's 4 distinct bulbs that, if you can see, I have put masks over because I got to dump a lot of light blocking paint in there. Down in this area here where the bulbs are, I have got to dump a bunch of light blocking paint. So I've covered over the exact openings where the lights are going to go, and then I'm just going to start spraying. There's no two ways about it. Okay, as you can see on this other mock-up, which is, I'm finding more and more convenient every day. I'm certainly glad I picked up 2 copies of this kit, because this allows me to check my thinking out here and then fit it inside. I'm beginning to think I built that thing all wrong. I know that Randy prefers building it top and bottom and then pushing the 2 halves together, and that has its benefits, but I'm more interested in completing the sidewalls, and the sidewalls are going to be tough to do that way. So I'm borrowing from here and from there and from everywhere to try to find the best way to do this. But if you look at the way the console sits, and this is how an example of how my console sits. Here's the floor, and here's the console, and I have marked out on the floor where it lines up and all of that. What I'd like to do is sneeze. Okay, I'm back from the sneeze. What I'd like to do is put my lighting for these headlights. I'm actually going to attach the strip to the back of the console, so that way I can put all of my lights in here and then mount that whole thing down at once and not try to join up wiring that's going to go to the back of these clear pieces that are in here. So I think that's how I want to do it. We're going to see how practical that is in the real world. I've also worked out a way to fatten up the interior wall here so that I can make the door slide, and now I have to cut away some area of this side of the main console to make room for that fatter wall. I am hoping against all hopes that it does not impinge too much. I know it's going to come out a little bit, but I wanted to not to intrude so much on the windows, the main front windows, because I think it's going to come out into here a little bit, so I'm going to have to do something to camouflage that. But alright, it has taken me all bloody day to come up to this conclusion, but I think it's going to be worth it in the long run. At least I hope so. I hadn't wasted my entire life. Pocket door. Pocket door for the entry. Here's the pocket. Here's the door. Door slides back and forth in a track. When it is completely closed, it comes all the way out to there. Don't worry about the aesthetics. I can clean that up. That's the least of my problems. So that's the completely open or completely closed door. And then it slides back to the completely open position. Now, the trick is I need to take this door out, glue all of this into the wall, in like this, in such a way that I minimize the amount of space you're going to see here at the front window. You're going to see some. I'm going to paint that black. Hopefully it'll disappear. And it won't be happening over here, only on this wall. So let's see how well we can get this to work. Okay, so I'm trying to fit all this in, and it seems to be working. I've got the dash put back in. Of course, now I had to chew some off of the side there, but that's the slider for the magnet, and I've got to cover that with a little bit of C-channel here to cover that up. But that's the sliding magnet. It also keeps, by doing it this way, it also keeps the door on a straight track. You can see the operation from the outside. The goal would be to run the magnet over the outside of the model, not scratching up the paint obviously, but enough to get it close enough. And then there'd be one on the other side. You'd have to do them manually. I'm not smart enough to figure out how to motorize these things, but that's the original. That's the goal. That's the idea. Now, like I said before, this is going to give you an inset door. It is not going to be pushed out and even with the outside of the hull, so I'm going to have to adapt this bottom step to take care of that gap there, but that shouldn't be too tough. I just run another piece of trim along the inside edge of that. That actually would do nicely to cover the something I thought was kind of clumsy to begin with, and that is this little gap right in here. So if I could run a piece of trim over that, then that takes care of all of that. So maybe I'll get back to the business of getting this thing lit. I kind of took a fork in the road here to get this guy done. I'm hoping that this door will be a little bit easier since we don't have to be working ourselves into a corner. However, the space that you have for it to slide in actually starts decreasing as the ceiling gets lower. So that is actually more of a problem on this side, on the back side, because when it's closed or when it's open the whole way, it just barely touches this runner where the ceiling hits it. So that's going to make it even more interesting. Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday. It's weird because I've had my daily plans changed on me. Right now I'm supposed to be in a dentist chair, but they had called me early this morning to say that they were having technical difficulties at their office and I needed to reschedule. So right now I just took the time to clean off the desk because, as anybody who's done any scratch building knows, it is a messy endeavor. And so I've cleaned up all the extraneous little bits of scraps and scratchings and sandings and all of that. And I'm hopefully going to be doing some exciting lighting today. Ooh, I made that rhyme. I didn't mean to. Exciting lighting. Working on the main console here, the dashboard, if you will. And I've got the final size down now because of the adapting I had to do once I put the interior walls in. I've got a little bit of the canopy cement right here on these clear parts that I am sealing in. I've glued them in from the back and now I'm kind of filling in from the front to raise up the level of the clear. Plus it does a great job of smoothing it. Any clear styrene or sanded styrene that I put in there automatically gets rougher because you're working around all these sanded materials. So just to gloss it back up, I am putting a coat of this over it, and I can still see there's some rough patches here that need to be cleaned up. But we've got, let me see, I'm kind of holding that at an angle while it dries. So let me prop this up again. There you go. Playing around with some ideas for lighting. And I want you to see what's going on here. Well, okay, so here we go. We got, obviously we got a light in that side. We got a light in this side. We've got a light down front, which is going to be fun. And then we've got a last light that goes straight up. And what that does is it lights the I guess this gridded circular thing looks like it's always been a navigational plotter, but that's going to light up like that. So we're going to prop this up and set it aside and let that dry while I work on some other things. Now I spent what seemed like all of yesterday on the bloody door just on the passenger side, on this side of door, and it took me forever. And then I hit upon something that I was doing something that was making my life a lot more difficult than it needed to be. And why was I doing it that way? And that was, I was working against the wall when I should have been working against the insert. I could work on the insert anywhere. So, also beefed up the bottom hatch here. Put a layer on of styrene on the cover there, and I put another lip on it because when it is closed, and when these doors are closed, because they're inset now, there was a big old gap there that would just let the vacuum of space in and kill everybody. So that wasn't good. So what I needed to do was to beef that up, and plus it gives me a nice little step here now. When it's resting on the nacelle, it'll look like a nice little step. And it gives me a finished look for that inside of that door. I don't know how well you can see this, but of course the idea is I want to get close to the wall without touching it, but that opens the door and closes the door. But now I need to put the other side door on, and of course what took me all day yesterday to do the one side door took me all of about 20 minutes this morning to put this side together. And it looks something like this. So when it goes on here, come on, close up. There you go. Trying to do this so that the camera can see it. And basically there is a door on a track with a magnet on the track. Magnet on the track goes like this. This inside wall will be covered up. Just that little runner will be covered up, and this magnet is strong enough to be accessed through the outside wall. Basically, it's just to get a hold of it. I'll probably do any manual repositioning of it manually. But now I'm ready to stick that wall in. And this is where we have to start making things permanent, because to do that, I have to start gluing things in and around things, which is my way of saying I have lost the ability to test fit things. I have got to finally make with the actual gluing. I realize I keep saying this, but one of these times it's going to be true. Hopefully we'll start picking up speed here in a minute or two, because I finally have the front console done. I know this is not accurate. It's as good as I want to make it, but it goes like something like that. These are the general shapes. I got the general shapes right. That's all I'm really interested in at this point. I know as soon as I spend a blistering amount of time and money and energy on making this perfect, that will be the day that Round 2 announces their interior kit. I just have that feeling. So I am not, mind you, going to spend a lot of time and energy on this. If it gets the idea across, somebody looks at it and says, hey, that's the shuttlecraft from Star Trek, then I'm happy. So, man, this took a lot of fiddly work. Trying to clean up here as I talk. Also gives me time to think of what I'm going to say. This will slide in. Also has the headlights on the front to do the headlights up front. Let me switch over to a stronger battery, because we're going to run into that problem where we have strip lights and LEDs, and they rarely like to play well together unless there is more amperage behind the plug than just what a 9-volt battery can do. Okay, so as you can see, we've got massive light leaks along the front. That was kind of to be expected. Where the headlight is shining out, but it looks great from the front. Looks fantastic from there. Nice warm white, nice 60s light. I like that. So we're just gonna have to figure out the best way to light block the front of the dashboard there. Yeah, I don't know whether we can glue that in place and then pour some JB weld in there to take care of that or not. I knew that was going to be a problem. It's just I didn't know how big a problem it was going to be. Okay, so I've just taken a few minutes and simply swamped the back of this circuit with my old friend liquid tape. And what this is going to do is it's going to act like liquid electrical tape. Anything that's a bare wire that might be exposed or shorting out, or risk of shorting out, is now protected. And now I can, after this dries, probably overnight, it basically makes a nice little vinyl shield over everything. So I'm going to let this dry at least a few good hours. I might come back to this later on this evening. But I have to chase this wire down the middle of the shuttle under the floorboard and bring it out into the back here where I'm going to have all of my electrical connections. Well, I'm back. I have let the back of the console dry, cure, all of that. Nice and solid and good and a wonderful thing. A few days ago I was out at the AutoZone, or the O'Reilly's, where I get my auto paint. And I'm always on the lookout for something new or interesting, because you'd be surprised how often you'd find it there. And I was looking for a good texture paint for bases and whatnot, and I came up across this. It's truck paint. It's basically, well, it's paint for your truck. It is, it says durable spatter finish, multicolor, restores factory trunk appearance. If your factory trunk is no longer appearing, this will be the trick. But I like it because when I'm doing grass and stuff like that, it gives me a nice texture, and I can paint the color over it. Well, I thought I would use it for the carpeting of the shuttle, and it's very nice. It's just what I want it to be. It has a slight texture and scale for what carpeting at this scale would look like, and I even like the color. So I've cut a notch in it here, and I think I'm going to notch it up front, give it a buenos notches, so that I can put the console sort of like this, where the console goes on top of it, and then the paint and the wiring comes out the back, and the whole thing sits in the ship like this. So let's see how it's going to work. I need some slack on this wire here. Get it around the door frame. Let's see how it's going to work. Oh, that's just a treat. That's going to be just fine. I'm trying to get that up out of the way. Okay. And the sidewall. Put the sidewall in, see how that's going to work. Actually, I need to pull the console out because the sidewall has to go in first. So I'm wondering if I can... Yeah, this all has to come out at the same time. Okay, things are starting to look up here at the end of the day. We have an interior. We have hellaciously bright headlights. We have an interior. We have importantly, we have the wiring going under the floor. When we put the seats in, everything kind of comes together. We've even got the little ball on the stick sensors. These are also compliments to the same gentleman who sent me the file for the chairs, and that'll go something like that. Yeah, I think this is really starting to come together here. Well, nothing is glued down yet, so that's why everything is going awry, but hopefully you get the picture. Now, there's one thing I've seen that I want to do before the end of the evening, and that is after I strip everything back out of here, is that I want to paint the areas under the seats, or under the dashboard there. I gotta paint it that brown, which I've always kind of took as almost a dusty rose color, but this tan earth at this scale seems to be the right color for the back walls, for the lower half of the back walls. Morning, folks. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week, and I got to tell you, ever since I made up my mind to finish this week with the interior of the Galileo and not try to finish the whole thing, it has been so much more enjoyable and so much less stressful. I've always said this is supposed to be an enjoyable hobby. If your model is causing you stress, you're not doing it right. You should be enjoying everything, and if, like I said, if it causes you stress, go out, get away from it, walk away, watch the birdies, do something else, and then come back to it when you are of a better frame of mind. Here today I am going to be finishing up the detailing on the interior, and this is also from the kind mind of Barry Chapman. Barry Chapman, my friend, if I ever see you in person, the first beer's on me, and the second and third is fourth as well, because you are doing me a tremendous favor here. He has put up some files of just some greeblies that go on the inside of the shuttlecraft, and if I had one complaint to make, it would be that the detail is maybe too fine, because a lot of what is going to be seen is too small to really put all the detail in it. I mean, there are, if you look on these things, you see that there are buttons and knobs and lights and all that kind of stuff that will probably never ever be seen. No disgrace to you, Barry, but a lot of this detail is beautiful, but it's just too intricate. Let's see, we've got some plant-ons for the walls. We've got the side computers that I need to sand down, and I told him this. I said, just give me a box with buttons on it and I'll be happy. And I can sand the angle on it so that when they go on the wall, they are at the correct angles. So my goal for today is to get all of the interior finished. You can see here's an example of what this interior wall will look like. Of course, I need to put the floor in first. My biggest issue, as I can tell right now, is going to be the light blocking along the front edge of the console, because as you'll remember from yesterday, that is a mighty strong light. I'm working at closing up the light leak around the headlights, and again, working in that stupid corner, not the way to go. Luckily, I do have this second kit, and what I've done is I've put my mock-up floor and my console in the second kit so that I can see, and I get it in the same position, I can see where the headlights are hitting, which not only tells me whether or not I've got them in the right spot, which I do, but what's the best way to light block around them right in here. So what I'm going to do is put a roof, for lack of a term, over top of it like that, so that it encapsulates that clear part and keeps the light from going anywhere else I don't want it to, and I could cover that with foil tape, and that would really light block everything. I just had a rather protracted lunch with my sister, which is always good fun and something I should do, but it is putting me woefully behind schedule here today. So I need to get this funnel, light funnel, in place around the lights here. And I need to light block that with a bit of the chrome tape. And every time I think I cut off some and leave it around, I end up tossing it out. So I had to end up going out and cutting off some more. So let me cut some more off of the spool. Is the actual duct tape, the tape they put on ductwork, also called aluminum tape. It is not what has become to be known as duct tape, but it's razor thin. Now the only problem with it is that it does conduct, so I have to make sure that it is not around any live electricity. But it is as thin as you can get it, and still it is thick enough to light block. Come on. Here we go. Now there's every chance in the world that gonna have to trim this box down some, but I can get it started with this. And so when you, well, let you see it without the light blocking and then with it, so you can see the difference. If you put that over the lights and then plug the lights in, that's how much light is conducted through the bottom, and this is how much light is conducted through the top. So let's take that away from the camera lens, and the hot glue gun is warming up because I need to hot glue this in place, and then once I'm sure it's in the right place, then I can attach it with more high-powered glue. This is how I am gauging the size of it, by putting my floor and sliding this up. That should sit right about like that, and hopefully that gives me the amount of space between this and the lights. Okay, it's taken a little bit of patience and some JB weld and a Q-tip and a dental tool and about 9 other things that I can think of. But I've got the console in on the front. I've got it light blocked. More importantly, I had to augment the driver's side panel here. I need to repaint that, but I needed to find something I could jam further up into the corner. And I just did some JB weld into that tight joint up there, and we'll let that cure. And now I've also got the sidewall in, but I don't have it glued, so that's the next thing. I want to glue the sidewall and the back wall. This guy here is ready to go in, but I need to touch the paint on it because it's never going to be any easier to paint than it is right now, and I need to also attach some greeblies on it to make it look a little busier. I've got all of the side computers here ready to go. I'll put the chairs in first, and then I'll put the side computers in. I want to get the belt sander out, the little craft belt sander. It's not the huge belt sander, so I can sand some of these consoles down to fit the edge that I want to put them on, or the angle that I want to put them on. And we're going to be moving along now. It is, it's about 2:30. I've got a couple of hours left on this day. It's not going to take a lot of time after this point. I was kind of right about this picking up speed, because now we're starting to lay the details in on the sidewall, and it's really looking good. I've got the chrome strips in, and kind of working my way from the back to the front. I don't think I'm going to get the back light in today, but if I can get the chairs in, I think that will be a great place. I might get this, if I can get the sidewall in, that would be great too. But I'm going to get the chairs, and I want to get this left hand wall or the right hand wall complete. And to do that, I got to put the chairs in. Then once the chairs are in, take a drink every time you hear me say chairs in, and you won't live to see the rest of this video. That will give me the spacing for the wall computers. Taking a minute to do something I should have done a long while ago. Don't know why it's taken me this long, but need to paint the knobs on the sides of these chairs silver. This is going to take longer today than I thought. My worst failing, of which I have many, is I am crap poor at estimating how long something is going to take to do. I have never been any good at estimating how much I will get done on a given day. Sometimes it flies by, and sometimes things will jump in my way that will keep me from finishing a given task. So, of course, I need to let these dry as well. The silver paint doesn't take much time to dry, but while I am doing this, I am also visually inspecting the chair, and if it has a better side, left or right, then I am putting it in separate piles or in separate rows so that I can put the best looking face out towards the outside and put the bad side towards the wall. The nice thing about these raised details is that they're easy enough to paint. Quick enough. Started the week without these chairs. I sometimes forget how far I've actually come this week, because it was just last weekend that I was even printing these and sizing them up, so shouldn't be too hard on myself for taking time. Again, it's not like there's any great rush, because there's not another great model coming out next week that I've got to jump on. And by now you've all heard the sad news that Wonderfest was completely canceled for the year, so it's not like I'm rushing to get anything done for that. Now see, here's a good example. This knob has a deformed arm on it, so I want to put that against the wall on that side. Kind of happy about the light box for the headlights. That went a lot easier than I was fearing, as far as having to do a bunch of extensive light blocking all along the length of the console, when all I really needed to do was to light block around the headlights more effectively and kind of cut that light leakage off at the source. Okay, I don't know how this happened, but this one doesn't have great knobs on either side, so I am going to have to look at which chair gets the least amount of visibility and kind of stick that one in that corner. On the printout, on the file for the chairs, one knob does look markedly better than the other when it prints, because of the way the supports are situated. You end up, one of them kind of runs through one of the legs of the knob, and if you don't clean it off just right, you end up with a stubby nubby knob there. I'm down to the end of the day on Friday, and this is generally the part of the week where I will quickly try to put something together that is sexy looking and forward thinking and some sort of payoff for the week. So I think what I'd like to do, since I turned the camera off last, I have started working on this other wall. There is an amount of epoxy sculpt going on in here that is blending walls together that I cannot do anything with until that cures, which will not be today. So what I'd like to do is concentrate on the walls that I can. This back corner is the most done, so what I'd like to do is go ahead and put some chairs in. We'll go ahead and put the chairs in the back corner, and maybe even a computer on the wall in front of it. So let's see how easily this goes down. Now, like everything else, this needs to be done with tweezers and a good amount of care. This is the chair I want for this side because it's got the good bolt. I want to put this chair at not straight going forward, but maybe kick it at a little bit of an angle. So that it's slightly turned out. There, that was easy. Now, the next chair up. Oh, that's the pilot chair because it's got two beautiful bolts on it. This is the next one. And the chairs are going to dictate the position of the wall computers. This one I'm going to put more of facing forward. I also want to make sure that they're far enough out from the wall. So that's going to look something like that, which puts the wall computer, I'm going to guess something like that. Yeah, okay. And I'm going to try to put them on just to the right hand side of these silver strips. Let's get this over in camera so you can see what's going on. And this would look something like that. But I need to sand them down because they are a bit too thick. Okay, one last little bit of detail I'm going to work on for that passenger side wall is this table. It goes right behind the co-pilot station, and it sits in front of the first passenger chair, and it looks like the computer sits right on top of that. So I'm just going to build a tiny little table that I can. It has no support sticking out from the wall. It just seems to float there. I'm not going to do that only because my glue joints aren't going to be strong enough to support all of that. So I may taper this, but I'm going to make a little leg that goes back to the wall, and that's gonna be the last detail I put in for the week. Okay, I think this is where we're gonna close up shop for the week. We've got if you don't look at the port side, it looks really nice, but port side is a mess. Let me plug this in to give you one last peek at the light show. Okay, here you go with the light show on. Let me aim that towards the camera a little bit better. Man, I got a mess here to clean up. Whew. Might take me all weekend just to do that. But we will hit this next week with fury and strength and passion and paint and glue and Bondo and epoxy and every other tool at my disposal, but we're going to get this thing done next week. And then maybe make a nice, also make a nice decorative base for it. That'll be a nice nice release after doing all this meticulous tiny work, would be to do something big and freeform. But we can take a good look in there. Now, lots of work to be done. Don't even think that I'm calling any of this finished, but it's getting there. If that's any indication, if that's a comfort for you, it's getting there. It certainly is a comfort for me. I've got half the chairs in. I've got the computers. Now I'm going to paint those up a little bit better. Maybe even dry brush some buttons and some lights. I know the detail is very slight on those. These 3 lights here need to be tinted. I will tint those with a Tamiya clear. I'm going to see if I can find any more photo etch that I can add to jazz that area up. And let me see, this guy needs to be glued down. Now the thing is, I've got the windshield in, and that's going to have to be cleaned vigorously before I'll say that it's done, but I can't get in and around it like I would like because, like I said, the windshield is in. I can't poke through that. But hopefully you'll get the idea that the astrogator would go there. And yeah, it's coming along. Of course, the big fun is going to be putting the big light in the back, and I haven't even thought about that today, and I was hoping to have that much finished. Whew! Shows you where my day went. And that, dear friends, is where we are going to drop this week. Again, thought I'd be much further along than I am, but hey, as also I've said, I'm in no rush. The thing about scratch building is that it eats up time like you wouldn't believe. You can look up and it's 1 o'clock, and you look up again and it's 4 o'clock. And that's also in the background. I don't know whether you hear my television, but I usually have it set to HGTV, either watching Fixer Upper or my favorite is Good Bones. But if they run a marathon all day, it's very difficult to gauge the passing of time because you're hearing basically the same audio for the full day, so you don't really get a sense of time changing on that either. So there are worse ways to spend your day whiling away, whittling at little tiny bits of plastic. I hope you don't mind if I'm cleaning up, but if I don't do this now, it ain't gonna get done. But that's how we spend the week. We spend it nice and productively, putting pieces of plastic together and playing around. And I think I mentioned earlier this week that I was concerned about mission creep. And that is when you say, oh, I might as well do this and I might as well do that. Well, those might as wells also will chalk up the time. And the compressor agrees with me that they while you're at it, the while you're at it will kill you. Getting to cleaning this thing. So until next week, I'll pay attention to you. I'm sorry. So until next week, we will say adios for now, and you be good. You be good to each other. Go out and scratch build something, and we'll see you here next week when hopefully we'll be finishing. Fingers, toes, eyes crossed.